Like other areas of development, such as motor skills and language acquisition, sexual behaviour and gender identity development begins from birth and continues through childhood and adolescence. Children learn from their experiences, relationships, connection to community, and the world around them more broadly. They learn through natural and adaptive sexualised behaviour or play and exploration with themselves and their peers. Unfortunately, some children explore and display sexual behaviours that are outside what we would expect for their developmental stage, and in some instances, they display behaviours that can cause harm to themselves and to others. These are called harmful sexual behaviours. Like many other behaviours, sexual behaviours are best understood along a continuum, including developmental, social, and cultural considerations. Like other behaviours, if outside what we would consider normative behaviour, then characteristics such as severity, intensity, and impacts of the negative behaviours within each psychosocial stage of development are really important. The layered continuum model for understanding harmful sexual behaviours uses a layered approach to conceptualise sexual behaviour across a range from developmentally appropriate and developmentally inappropriate through to which may be considered harmful sexual behaviours, which is inclusive of concerning, very concerning, and serious or extreme sexual behaviours. Along this continuum, practitioners first look to review the behaviour in terms of a child or young person's developmental age and stage, then with consideration to other layers of contextual information, including any social, cultural, and environmental factors, the dynamic created when another child is involved in the behaviour, specifically with regards to concepts of respect, mutuality, and consent, the emotional experience of children involved, and the pattern of behaviour over time. Here is how we use this model to determine the overall level of sexual concern. Imagine as we add layers of information to our overall understanding of the child's behaviour, the cog can move from anti-clockwise or clockwise and take the behaviour from being classified as appropriate right through to being serious. The first piece of information we consider is the general description of the behaviour. So looking at the behaviour within the context of the child's cognitive, social, emotional, physical, biological, and sexual development and ability. How developmentally appropriate is the behaviour? Are there any contextual factors that need to be considered, such as particular social, cultural, religious, or environmental contexts? This sets the baseline for any further adjustments classifying the behaviour and has the largest impact on our thinking. Let's use an example as we move along to demonstrate how the cogs move if we add the layers of information. Take a 12-year-old boy, functioning within an average developmental range for his age. He's displaying masturbating behaviour. He lives with his parents and his siblings. There's no specific religious or cultural context to consider. However, his parents are quite open about discussing sex in the home, watching sexual content, and displays of nudity are quite common. Based on this information, we would set the general description to developmentally appropriate behaviour along the continuum. Now, the next layer we consider relates to behaviours that involve other children. This is probably the most concerning layer for many people working with children who have displayed sexualised behaviour. The issue of consent, mutuality, reciprocity, and respect when there is another child involved. This layer considers things like power differential between the children involved with regards to the relationship, the age, and developmental ability, which is often influenced by a child's social, emotional, and cognitive capacity. This layer can dramatically change our level of concern, particularly where a developmentally appropriate behaviour is displayed within the context of an older child and a much younger, more vulnerable child. If, like our example, there is no other children involved, then this layer is not considered in our overall assessment. However, it is important to note that sexual behaviours can evolve over time, and this layer may need to be revisited when reviewing any other behaviours in the future. We now consider the next layer, which is the emotional experience and response to the behaviour. This relates to the emotional experience of the child when the behaviour is displayed or when it is uncovered, and includes the emotional experience of any other children involved. Emotional experiences are complex, and expression of emotions can vary between individuals, cultures, and contexts. It is important to remember in this layer that there are no right or wrong emotional responses, and it is more about exploring a child's experience, what they tell us, what they show us with their body language and expression, and what they actually feel inside. Outward signs of emotion indicating that the child feels happy, relaxed, or curious about the behaviour, versus signs the child is feeling distressed, shamed, or anxious, influence our assessment of how concerned we should be about the sexual behaviour. Let's just say that the young boy's parents notice his increasing masturbation, and one of them has a discussion with him about the behaviour and the frequency with which he's doing it. He expresses that whilst it feels good and he enjoys it, he is starting to worry that he's doing it too often, and he's beginning to feel a bit embarrassed that it's maybe not normal to masturbate so many times a day. With this additional layer of information, we become more concerned about the impact of the behaviour on the well-being of the young person, and would move the classification of the behaviour into the inappropriate category. This information can also help with how we support the young person in this situation. Now we add in the final layer, the pattern of behaviour. Within pattern, we not only look at the frequency and persistency of the behaviour, but we also consider the progression and types of behaviour displayed over time, the location, setting or context of the behaviours, and any patterns that emerge where there are other children involved. Is it a one-off behaviour, or does it occur frequently? Has it persisted even when we've tried to support the child to stop or reduce? Is it one of many sexualised behaviours the child is displaying that make up a pattern of behaviour? Now back to our example of the boy. The behaviour was initially set as developmentally appropriate on the continuum, moving to inappropriate due to his reported emotional discomfort. Let's say that this behaviour has now been going on for several months and occurs multiple times a day, to the point where he's caused injury to his penis requiring medical intervention. His parents have tried to support him to cease the behaviour, but their efforts have not been successful, and he has become far more secretive about the behaviour and trying to hide it. This level of persistency and frequency that has occurred over time and persisted despite intervention would cause us to be more concerned about the impact of the behaviour and influence our overall level of concern to shift from developmentally inappropriate into the concerning range. Once we've considered all the layers or parts of information, we get a deeper understanding about the overall level of sexual concern of a particular behaviour for a particular child within a certain context. Let's go back one more time to our example. Let's just say that after 3 months of the masturbating behaviour persisting past his parents' attempts to disrupt the behaviour, they discover that the young person has been encouraging his 5-year-old brother to also engage in the masturbating behaviour. He's been giving him lollies in exchange for getting him to watch him masturbate and getting him to try out the behaviour himself. This inclusion of the younger brother in the masturbating behaviour is very concerning, as he is significantly older, developmentally more mature, in a position of power in the sibling relationship, and he is also using bribes in the form of lollies to engage his brother in the behaviour. This would certainly increase our overall level of concern of the behaviour, from one that was previously developmentally appropriate behaviour at the beginning to one that is now considered very concerning. Whilst this layered continuum helps you to step your thinking through and give structure to your determination of whether a sexual behaviour is harmful or not, it is critical to remember that children's behaviours are dynamic. They often change over time, and in different contexts, you may have to repeat this step-by-step process each time a behaviour occurs or if you notice a change.